Hello, WooConf 2016. What a cool venue. Thanks for coming. I'm David Lockie, and as an agency owner, I want to tell you that one of the saddest things that can happen is to see a project that's gone bad. Whether that's one you've worked on yourself, or that one you've come across, one that you've inherited. We've all had that sickening feeling, right? The pit of your stomach, where you realise that you've missed a requirement or you've made some assumption and you're going to have to put in a ton of work or upset your client, or maybe even both, to get this project past the post. And WooCommerce only makes this challenge greater. It's complex. There are more moving parts. There are more things to miss. So the thing that I want to talk to you about today is our process, discovery and definition, and it's the way that we mitigate the risk of projects having anything less than a great outcome. And if I can help avoid one bad project out of today, I'll be super pleased. So I'm going to look at where discovery and definition fits in, how to run one, and a few tips that we've learned along the way. So let's start at the beginning. This is what a sales inquiry looks like. And as an agency, we need to rapidly qualify that out to work out whether it's a genuine lead, an opportunity, or whether it's something we should move on from. So we're going to ask the typical questions. How much money have you got, and when do you need this done by? In this case, it's pretty standard stuff. The client wants it next week, but the budget looks okay. $20,000 is enough to put together a pretty decent WooCommerce site. So we're going to have a look through the brief, and we're going to look through the brief in the context of all of the moving parts for a project, right? So planning, wireframing, design, production, project management, communications, training, UAT, QA, pre-go live, the whole package. And so for $20,000, we think this is a project that's more about configuration and customization. We don't want to get ourselves down a rabbit hole of like a ton of custom code that needs loads of QA, because that's not necessarily going to help the client. And of course, we want to limit our liability with this. We don't want it rolling on for the next 6 months. The client, when they wrote the brief, probably had something quite different in mind. They've got a really strong vision for what this website needs to do for their business. And they could be totally right. This could be the next big thing, even if some of their requirements are a little bit unrealistic. And so we can end up here. This is the riskiest place for any project. If we don't pitch it right, we could lose the work. We could miss out on a great client, a great project, and the client could miss out on a great technology partner. But even worse, the project could proceed, and it could have a bad outcome. And that's damaging to the client. It could hurt their business. It's damaging to us. It would hurt our reputation. And I'm sure we've all seen projects that proceed regardless at this stage. People just go, heck, let's just go for it. And those are websites that look great but don't work, or work great but look horrible, or clients that have like trust issues around WordPress developers and WordPress and WooCommerce in general, which is a really bad outcome for the whole ecosystem. Agencies can be demotivated by too many projects like this. So we kind of end up here. When this piece of sales is finished, and we've qualified it out, but before we can start building the site, we're left in this kind of, as Dr. Seuss might say, this weirdish wild space full of ambiguity and assumption and risk and, you know, what's in there? And that's the problem that discovery and definition aims to solve. We need to align our vision and our requirements and our expectations with the client so that we've got the best possible chance of a good outcome. So now I'm going to show you what our discovery and definition looks like. 3 phases: discovery, definition, and playback. The first of which is discovery. This is a face-to-face thing, right? It's essential to get all the key stakeholders in a room and work together to go through a whole ton of questions. That's what it breaks down to, a whole ton of Q&A. There's about 130 questions in our discovery and definition session. Some of them are like yes, no. Some of them are multiple choice. Some of them are actually pretty open. So they can take a while to get through. And obviously you want to record all these answers. It's also your opportunity to show some value to your clients. So if they say they want that thing that Facebook does, then ask them why. How does that add to the value of this website? How does it connect with your business values, your business goals? And so through challenging these assumptions, you can also start to prioritize out the requirements and make sure that you really understand the core intent of this project. So here are some typical WooCommerce requirements, right? Some of them pretty yes, no. And as we work through, we'll try and highlight the answers so that we can then refer back to all of these and take them away. And here, it looks like a pretty simple project, but I've got a flag here. Lots of logged in users. The client's running a campaign. There's going to be lots of people buying this stuff at the same time. So that's a pin that we'll flag internally, and we'll do some work to make sure that the hosting that we recommend has got the capacity for peaks of lots of logged in users. There's no point doing all this work, launching a site, watching it 500 because the hosting isn't powerful enough. So once we've got all these answers, we kind of take those away separately. So the client will have a ton of actions to do, send us their Google Analytics or, send us their brand guidelines or whatever falls out of the meeting that they need to send us. We'll want to do some research as well, make sure that we're going to market, looking at their requirements, looking at all the plugins, themes, services, integrations, how we're going to build this out for them. And we might want to prototype that up, throw up a simple WordPress site, install the plugin, see if we can complete these user journeys through so that we're taking some of the risk out of the production phase for ourselves. And then we're going to want to reconstruct the client's brief back to them in the form of wireframes. This is the most powerful way that we can have to present the client's site to them before we've really had to do much work. It's a really intuitive way for them to see what they're going to get. You can have a sitemap, you can show the pages, this is the blog, it's got a sidebar, all that stuff. It's really obvious, and it's a great way to run through the requirements and how the user is going to get the most out of the site. And we want to construct our tech spec, so this is a sort of more wordy thing that becomes a project scope. What's in, what's out, what's the deliverables. And so here's a couple of the things that we'll be doing during definition. We'll be mapping out user journeys against the user stories, making sure that we've thought about those from a logical point of view, and we'll be building out this tech spec document based on default positions, clients' answers, and the answers to our research. So then we've done all that, and it's time for playback. And this is, again, done together. This is where we, as the agency, represent the project to the client, but in our own way. So we say, look, here are the wireframes. Here's how your customers will click through to achieve the journey that you want them to achieve. And it's really key also to talk through any risk that remains in the project. So assumptions, dependencies, things that you both agree are still unknown and perhaps unknowable until you've got through some of the work. And critically, because this is the bit that sits between sales and production, we need to present a commercial proposal for delivering the rest of this work. We've asked the client to invest all this time and energy to help us brief it out. So now we need to stick to our side of the bargain and say, okay, well, look, this is definitely what this means for you. And it probably seems pretty obvious to us that on a WooCommerce site, you have like a product page, and then you check out, and then the user receives an email download link if they're buying like a digital product. But your client might have different expectations. They might expect the whole thing to be on one page, or they might... It's crazy what clients can expect out of a project. So having these things mapped out, being able to click through, it just takes all the ambiguity out of it. So discovery and definition ends, and we move forward to production. We take with us the wireframes and the statement of work and the tech spec and the proposal. But we also take with us the softer stuff like client relationship and trust, understanding whether people respond better by phone or email or Slack, or what's going to be a productive way to work ongoing. And discovery and definition doesn't mean that you're definitely going to win that main piece of work, that production phase. But in our experience, it gives us a much better percentage chance of closing that deal. And most importantly, if the project does proceed, it gives it the best possible chance of a successful outcome, which is super key to us. We spend time marketing, sales, building these relationships. So we want a great project to come out the back because it's going to give us a referrer effect. It's going to mean that we're more likely to do work for the client, and we may even make some profit on the project while we're doing it. So it's a good thing. So a few tips. You know, we've done a lot of this now. As an agency, you might be sitting there thinking, there is no way I'm doing all that work unpaid just to win a project. And you're right, you shouldn't. This is consultancy. This is perhaps the most valuable part you can play in a project, is to make sure that everyone knows what the project is and that it's doable. As a client, you might be thinking, well, but what am I getting for this money at this phase? And there are really clear answers. You're getting wireframes, you're getting a brief, you're getting tech spec, you're getting consultancy work. You know, this is valuable stuff. So we'll bill anything between 2 days and 2 weeks, depending on the size of the project, just for discovery and definition. Second main thing is to make sure that everyone's there that needs to be there. So this is like the people that are going to sign the check, or the people that own the department that this website's going to affect within the business. Make sure that they're there, because otherwise they can come and unpick the process right at the end. Probably the third thing is to just understand that there's a lot of questions in here, and it's more important to cover all of them to some level than it is to deep dive on 1 or 2 or 3, because if you've still got 50 questions left completely untouched by the end, you don't know how much more time you need to complete this discovery and definition phase. It's much better just to put a pin in the ones that provoke discussion or are unknown and come back. At least you know whether you've got 5 or 10 or 50, and that's easier to manage. And as I said, there's 150 questions here. Bring some cake, make sure people are comfortable, keep their blood sugar up. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's essential that people are comfortable, engaged, and that they can get through this process with you. So thank you. If that helps somebody avoid a bad outcome to a project, then I'll be super happy, because there's no reason for it anymore.